Houston is the fourth largest city in America. It has no mountains, no island, no natural choke points. It sits on 45 miles of flat coastal plain with 2,500 miles of waterways running through it, like veins. For the first time since the Mongols crossed the Hudson, they are looking at terrain that actually makes sense to them. And that changes everything. 800,000 Mongol warriors just crossed the Gulf of Mexico coastline at Galveston Island. The year is 2026. It is 5 a.m. on a Thursday. The greatest cavalry force in human history just stepped onto the flattest major urban terrain in the United States. And every single tactic in their military library was built for exactly this kind of ground. New York had the island. Baltimore had the harbor choke points. Houston has nothing between the Mongols and the city center but 45 miles of flat Texas coastal plain and a highway system that, from horseback, looks almost exactly like a steppe road network. Let's understand what flat terrain means to a Mongol army. Their entire military doctrine, the fake retreats, the wide flanking movements, the pincer encirclements, requires open ground with long sight lines. In Manhattan, they were blind past every street corner. In Baltimore, the hills and harbor broke their formations. In Houston, they can see for miles in every direction. A Mongol horse archer at full gallop can fire 12 aim shots per minute. On flat open ground with no obstructions, that archer can engage targets at 300 meters while moving at 35 miles per hour. This is the environment they were built for. This is where they never lost. Houston has 2,304 police officers covering 671 square miles, the largest land area of any major American city. That ratio is 1 officer per 0.29 square miles under normal conditions. Under these conditions, it means the HPD is trying to respond to an 800,000 warrior invasion spread across a front that is physically impossible to cover. The National Guard's 36th Infantry Division is based in Austin, 165 miles northwest. Full mobilization and movement to Houston takes a minimum of 6 hours. Fort Hood, one of the largest military bases in the world with 40,000 soldiers, is 200 miles north. The Mongols have a 6-hour window before serious military resistance arrives. In 6 hours, the Mongol army once covered 80 miles of open steppe. Houston city center is 45 miles from Galveston. The math is not good. A first contact happens at 6:15 a.m. on Interstate 45, the main highway connecting Galveston to Houston. HPD units responding to reports of an unidentified mass movement hit the Mongol vanguard at the Texas City interchange. This is the moment everything is different from New York and Baltimore. In Manhattan, the Mongols hit a wall of urban architecture within minutes. In Baltimore, the harbor stopped their advance at the inner harbor. On Interstate 45 at 6:15 a.m., there is nothing but flat highway and open land for miles in every direction. The Mongols don't slow down. They go around the HPD units using the service roads, the median, and the open fields alongside the highway simultaneously. 3 flanking columns moving at 35 miles per hour, encircling the police position before backup can arrive. This is a textbook Mongol pincer movement, executed on American asphalt in 2026. It works exactly as it did in 1241. By 7:30 a.m., the vanguard has covered 30 miles and is approaching the Houston Ship Channel, the 52-mile waterway connecting Houston to the Gulf of Mexico and one of the busiest ports in the United States. This is the moment the invasion becomes a national economic emergency before it becomes a military one. The Houston Ship Channel handles 247 million tons of cargo annually. It is the primary transit point for 60% of America's petrochemical exports. The Mongols don't know what petrochemicals are. They know what a port looks like. And they know that whoever controls the water controls the city. They begin moving toward the ship channel with the same instinct that drove them to Baltimore's inner harbor, not because they understand what it does, but because they understand what controlling it means. Here is where Houston's unique geography creates the first serious problem for the Mongols that New York and Baltimore didn't have: the bayou system. Houston has 2,500 miles of bayous, slow-moving water channels between 20 and 200 feet wide, running through every neighborhood in the city in every direction. On a map, they look like cracks in concrete. On the ground, they are uncrossable obstacles for horses every 4 to 6 blocks. The Mongol advance that was moving at 35 miles per hour on the open highway slows to a crawl the moment it enters the urban grid. Every bayou requires a bridge. Every bridge is a choke point. Every choke point is a defensive position. Houston accidentally built the most effective anti-cavalry urban terrain in America entirely for flood management reasons, and nobody noticed until right now. By 9 a.m., the Mongol advance has fragmented into dozens of smaller columns, each navigating a different path through the bayou network. This is both their greatest adaptation and their greatest vulnerability. The Mongols were masters of coordinated multi-column advances. They did this across thousands of miles of Central Asian steppe, using messenger riders and signal fires. In Houston's bayou grid, those messenger riders can't cross the water channels either. Communication between columns breaks down. The unified 800,000 warrior force that crossed Galveston this morning is now operating as hundreds of disconnected smaller units spread across 40 square miles of suburban Houston with no reliable way to coordinate. Fort Hood gets the order at 7 a.m. The 1st Cavalry Division, 20,000 soldiers, 200 Apache helicopters, and enough armored vehicles to fill every highway lane between Austin and Houston, begins moving south. The irony is not subtle. The United States Army's 1st Cavalry Division, the direct institutional descendant of the horse soldier tradition the Mongols perfected, is riding to meet the greatest cavalry force in human history. They will arrive in Houston at approximately 1 p.m. The Mongols have been in the city for 7 hours. In those 7 hours, they have reached the ship channel, fragmented across the bayou network, and are now doing something that Houston's emergency planners did not model. They are commandeering every flat-bottomed boat, kayak, canoe, and floating platform they can find, and using them to cross the bayous. This is the Mongol adaptation that changes the battle. By 10 a.m., units that arrived at impassable bayou crossings 2 hours ago are now on the other side, not using the bridges, using anything that floats. A force that crossed the Gobi Desert, the Volga River, and the Danube in winter is not going to be stopped by a 40-foot-wide water channel in Texas. The bayou network that was supposed to fragment and slow the advance is now a transit system the Mongols are learning to navigate in real time. Every kayak rental on Buffalo Bayou, every flat-bottomed fishing boat on Braze Bayou, every construction platform on the ship channel, all commandeered, loaded with warriors, moving deeper into the city. NASA's Johnson Space Center sits 25 miles southeast of downtown Houston. At 10:30 a.m., a Mongol scouting column of approximately 2,000 warriors reaches the perimeter of JSC. The facility covers 1,620 acres and contains mission control for the International Space Station, every piece of astronaut training equipment America has, and enough advanced technology to make the entire scouting column stop moving and stare for a very long time. The JSC security team of 200 federal officers holds the perimeter. The scouts don't attack. They circle the facility twice, examine the buildings, look at the rockets on display outside, and move on. Whatever they concluded about what they were looking at, they decided it wasn't a military target. They were wrong about what it was and accidentally right about what to do with it. By noon, the situation in Houston is unlike anything that happened in New York or Baltimore. The Mongols are not contained. There is no island perimeter. There is no harbor to blockade. They control a sprawling, irregular zone covering nearly 80 square miles of the city's eastern and southern districts. The ship channel is under their physical presence, though not under their operational control, since they have no way to stop or operate the vessels moving through it. 400,000 civilians are still inside the zone. The flat terrain that helped them advance is now helping Apache helicopters track every column in real time from 5,000 feet. The 1st Cavalry Division is 90 minutes out. And the Mongol commander is making a decision that neither New York nor Baltimore required him to make, whether to keep pushing west toward downtown or consolidate the ground already taken. He chooses to consolidate. This is the tactically correct decision and also the decision that ultimately costs him the campaign. By stopping to consolidate 80 square miles of fragmented urban terrain with units that can't reliably communicate across the bayou network, he gives the 1st Cavalry Division time to establish a perimeter on the western and northern edges of the city. When the Apaches arrive at 1 p.m., they don't attack immediately. They establish a surveillance screen, map every Mongol column position in real time, and feed that data to the ground units establishing the perimeter. The Mongols have never faced an enemy that could see all of them simultaneously from above, while remaining completely invisible and untouchable. The Apache engagement begins at 2:30 p.m. Unlike the AC-130 over Baltimore, which had finite ammunition and fuel, the 1st Cavalry Division has a full logistics train: fuel, ammunition resupply, maintenance, operating from a forward base established at Houston's NRG Stadium parking lot 8 miles from the perimeter. This is not a scalpel operation. This is combined arms warfare with air, armor, and infantry, operating in coordination with real-time aerial surveillance across flat terrain that gives American forces every advantage it gave the Mongols 4 hours ago. The same open ground that let the Mongols advance at 35 miles per hour now gives Apache gunships unobstructed firing lines for miles in every direction. But here is the problem that stops this from being a simple military victory. 400,000 civilians are still inside the zone. The Mongol columns that consolidated across 80 square miles are not concentrated in one area. They are dispersed through residential neighborhoods, commercial districts, and industrial zones across the entire eastern half of the city. Precision airstrikes in that environment without civilian casualties are not possible at the scale needed to neutralize 800,000 warriors. The military can tighten the perimeter. It can cut off movement. It can destroy any concentrated formation that presents itself. It cannot conduct a general offensive without accepting civilian casualties on a scale that no administration will authorize on live television. Day 2. The supply problem arrives faster in Houston than anywhere else, and it arrives from an unexpected direction. Houston, in late spring, averages 94 degrees Fahrenheit, with 90% humidity. The Mongol army came from the Central Asian steppe, where summer temperatures are dry heat and nights are cold. The combination of Houston's heat, humidity, standing water in every bayou, and the complete absence of the dry wind the horses are physiologically adapted to creates a veterinary crisis by the end of day 1. The horses are not starving like they did in New York and Baltimore. They are overheating. Dehydration sets in faster than anyone in the Mongol medical tradition has tools to address because the Mongol medical tradition never encountered Gulf Coast humidity. By day 3, the horse situation is critical. The warriors are adapting. They are finding water, raiding grocery stores, locating food. The horses are dying faster than in either previous city, and for a reason nobody could have predicted. Houston's heat is a biological weapon the city didn't know it had. An army that conquered Russia in winter is being defeated in part by Texas in May. The Mongol commander sends his emissary on day 4. Not because he has run out of warriors or will, because he has run out of horses. And a Mongol army without horses is not a Mongol army. The negotiation happens at the ship channel. The terms are the same as Baltimore. Safe passage. Oh, civilian safety, full withdrawal. Washington agrees faster this time, not because the military situation is more desperate, but because the ship channel has been effectively paralyzed for 4 days, and the economic damage to America's petrochemical export infrastructure is being measured in billions per day. Sometimes wars end not because of casualties, but because of quarterly earnings reports. The Mongols withdraw on day 5, through Galveston, back into the Gulf, orderly and disciplined exactly as they came. What Houston revealed that New York and Baltimore didn't is the most uncomfortable defense planning lesson of the 3 cities. Houston fell into Mongol hands for 80 square miles on day 1, not because of any failure of courage or response time, but because of geography. Flat terrain plus a 6-hour military response window plus a fragmented urban structure equals an opening that 800,000 warriors can exploit before anyone can close it. There are 15 American cities built on flat coastal or river plain terrain with similar response time vulnerabilities. Houston was the proof of concept. The lesson cost 4 days and billions in economic damage to learn. The other lesson is biological, and nobody talks about it. The Mongol Empire conquered the known world partly because their horses were uniquely adapted to steppe conditions: cold, dry, sparse. Those same horses in Houston's heat and humidity became a liability within 24 hours. Every military force in history has been constrained by the biology of its weapons. The Mongols' weapon was the horse. Houston's weather broke that weapon faster than any army ever did. The world is stranger and more fragile than any wargame models. 3 cities, 3 different outcomes shaped by 3 different geographies. Manhattan's island contained them. Baltimore's proximity to D.C. paralyzed the response. Houston's flatness let them in, and its heat drove them out. The question defense planners are now asking in this scenario isn't which city is next. It's which city has no geographical answer at all. Subscribe, because that city is already in the script.